Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is I am finally getting around to A.J. Dunn Reads and Writes original tag, It's All Relative. So the first question is, Mamma Mia, recommend a book with a mother character that is pivotal to the story. And a lot of these are going to have recency bias, but the book I just finished, where the mother is not the main purpose of the story, but she is definitely pivotal. And it's the mother and the personal librarian. Without the mother choosing to pass the whole family as white, Belle DaCosta Green would not have been the first black woman entered into a bunch of societies that she entered into. She would never have been able to work for JP Morgan. She would never become rich. But at the same time, the mother's decision caused the father then to make the decision to leave so that he could hold on to his credibility as a black civil rights lawyer and move through life as a black man. So everything spun on the pinhead of the mother's decisions in the personal librarian. Number 2, Papa Don't Preach, a book with a father character you like or despise. And again, recency bias. The Father in A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. He was out of work for a year. He was about to lose a house because of that. His daughter was schizophrenic, but instead of, getting help himself, taking a part-time job, whatever he needed to do, he turned to religion, extreme religion, and then had his daughter exorcised. And it was like and he allowed the exploitation of the reality show element to come in, and there was just a lot of weird misogyny when it came to how that situation was dealt with. And when the show was being produced as episodes were going out, so people started to come and protest at their house, and he would go out and try to preach at them, and he would rage and he would fight them. And then when the exorcism inevitably didn't work, he blamed the church, not himself. He took no responsibility and was wanting to sue the church and all of this stuff. And so he was just a mess. He was just a mess of a man. And I understand doing weird things when you're under a lot of pressure, but he wasn't good. Number 3, Brothers and Sisters, a story with an interesting sibling relationship. Were root magic. It was between twins, Jay and Jezebel. And it was interesting how they were very close until Jezebel skipped a grade. And so Jay's popularity and ease with making friends was kind of taken away from her. She's more shy and introspective and had a very hard time making friends. And so it was interesting to see how that played out. And Amari and the Knight Brothers is another sibling story where Amari, who is the very young child, goes looking for her teenage, or I think Quentin might have been a young adult, who went missing. And so this brave little girl, middle grade girl, goes looking for her older sibling. And that's a really good story and a really good dynamic as well. It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
A book you like that is multi-generational or chronicles a character's whole life. And I had 2 for that. Jubilee is a story like that. It is by Margaret Walker. and it's about a young girl, and it kind of goes through her mother's story a little bit. It goes to her story, and then it chronicles her whole life, and just the troubles that she has on this slave plantation. And I just remember the thing that stuck with me so much was that she obviously was a result of the bad things that happened on slave plantations between slave masters and the enslaved women. And so she looked just like the slave master's legitimate daughter. And when they would be out playing, people would come to the plantation and they would remark that how they looked like sisters, or they would mistake one of the girls for the other, and that made the slave master's wife incredibly angry, and it caused her to abuse the little girl. But that's just one interesting part of it, but it does chronicle her entire life. Another book is The Cutting Season by Attica Locke. That book, it really focuses on the now and a murder mystery right now, but there's also a murder mystery back in the 1700s, 1800s, when 1700s, and there is a theft of land in regards to that initial murder, and then it connects to the family member that is involved in this murder mystery present day. So in a sense, that's a lifetime spanning or generation spanning story, just kind of broken up in a way. So I thought that would be a good one to recommend as well. You Complete Me.
You complete me.
A book with an interesting marriage as a central element to the story. The Changeling by Victor Laval. That was an interesting marriage. The lady went nuts and like knocked out the husband and took their child away, and he still forgave her, went searched her down, and they end up fighting all kinds of mythical creatures, and actually repaired the relationship even though she tried to burn him and all this stuff. So that was an interesting relationship. That was an interesting marriage. Number 6, Picture It, Sicily, a book with an interesting elder character, grandparent or great-grandparent. And I would say that Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky. His granddad is a trip. He's annoying as all get out. So Tristan is dealing with the death of his best friend. They were on a school bus, and the school bus had an accident, and he couldn't save his friend. He has the therapist, the counselor, the grief counselor has suggested that he get out of Chicago for a while and go hang out with his grandparents in Alabama for about a month. And his grandparents come up and they see him do his last take part in his last boxing match, and then they take him down to Alabama. Well, he loses that match. Tristan, the little boy, he loses the match, and it's something that all of the strong men have been involved in, and they've been champions. And so everybody else is, oh, it's okay, it's okay, baby. But the granddad is, completely puts him down. There is no sugarcoating it. And then the 15-hour drive down from Chicago to Alabama, the granddad is, you boys is, you kids these days, that kind of, you're soft, that boy don't need to be writing, that boy don't need to be, you need to be working. The answer is work, work, work. And it's just non-stop, and it's just miserable for Tristan. And so he's an interesting and memorable character. And I think all of us know somebody like that, whether they're, my grandparents, my grandfather, the one grandfather I knew was not like that. He was silly. But we all know people who are like that. Number 7, Friends with Benefits, a book with a found family or friends as family element. This is my absolute most favorite trope. And so I have 2 books that do this, and I would suggest listening to them on audio. The 2 narrators are 2 of my favorite narrators, and they make these books come alive. The first one is Until the End of the World by Sarah Lyons Fleming. It's a post-apocalyptic, zombie story, but that is in the background. All of these friends are forced together. Some of them are friends from high school, some are from friends from work, some are stragglers that they've come together along the way, some are lovers, some are ex-lovers that are caught up with the lovers. And they all have to work together to try to get to safe places. They're rebuilding societies. It's a whole series, and so by the end of the society, they get to a place. They start trying to build up, rebuild society. And obviously, there's children who are orphaned, and certain people take them on. This also happens in the Chronicles of St. Mary series by Jodi Taylor. And this is a book series and it's ongoing, where in some unspecified time, we've figured out time travel. There had been a time war, and the time police have now gotten it back together and stuff like that. So there's rules about it and everything. And by the time we see what's going on, it's just we're following a group of scientists who go back in time to just observe and get the real story on what happened, because we all know that history is really kind of a guess. A lot of times the historians are guessing using their best guesstimation, their educated guesstimations on what happened. So these historians have the privilege of going back and seeing things, but it's quite dangerous to do so, and they lose people along the way. They're really humorous, they're really funny, there's funny banter between them. They really care about each other because they have to work together on all the systems and all that kind of stuff. They work through these dangerous situations. There's romance sometimes, and then there's breakups of that, but they're still on the same teams and everything like that. So there's drama and all this kind of stuff, but it's the kind of drama that you would have when there's something more than just friends. Because if you're just friends, if there's drama, you can just walk away. But if you're friends that are so close and depend on each other for your livelihood to live like somebody would in a post-apocalyptic era, or people traveling back in time to dangerous times and things like that, you have to work through it just like a family should work through their issues. So my favorite trope, and those are my 2 favorite series that deal with that trope. Number 8, I Think We're Alone Now. I can't help but think of this. I think we're alone now. A book with a character who was lost, left behind, or abandoned. Can also be a story with an orphaned or adopted character. So I do not recommend this book. It is from my fundamental days. But when Left Behind was said, I immediately thought of that horrible series, Left Behind. Millions of children have been terrorized by the idea that if you do something, it's a possibility you could be walking down the street, and because you did something wrong, your mom would be swooped up into the sky and you could be left there because your heart was bad. That alone is child abuse. Not talking about all the other stuff we went through as fundamentalists, being under the fundamentalist regime. So I just thought that flashed me back to those books, those movies. There was an older movie from the 70s that was even more horrifying that I still to this day every once in a while have a nightmare about. So I just wanted to, that just gave me chills thinking about that with the Left Behind. But my actual book is Little Secrets. It's a story about a child who got lost in it's a perfect couple, and the child that they have, the mother and the child go shopping, and she lets go of his hand. He's like 4 or 5. She lets go of his hand, and she's like reading the ingredients of something. Then she looks around, and the little boy is gone. And from there on, there's like all of this stuff that happens, and it ends up being one of those twisty turn mysteries, and you find out everybody got dirt on them. Absolutely everybody. It was so it was interesting. Nobody was innocent in this story except the baby. So that was a fun ride. Fur Baby, a book where a pet or animal is part of the family and or plays an important role in the book. And so I'm gonna say, first of all, overall, I know there's classics that do it, but overall, the cozy mystery genre almost always has a cat or a puppy as a part of the story. So get into cozies for that, for the cozy mysteries. Like, I don't know why it's cozy to have murder, but it is. But specifically, I'm just gonna go with Bonbons and Broomsticks by H.Y. Hannah. There's a cat in that series that goes throughout the whole thing, and sometimes the cats in these stories have it's obvious they have magic, and then sometimes you're like, maybe they do. And so this whole series, there's a little black cat that is very, very sweet to the main character in the story. So I tag anybody who wants to do these. I always feel stressed. Like I have no idea who has or has not done a tag, but I tag anyone who wants to take part in this, and I hope you do, because this was such a cute tag, very interesting, really different questions. I'm awed at AJ Dunn. So check out their channel, and I will link the original tag down below, as well as the questions. Let's put an old man as for the emoji for the grandparent or great grandparent prompt. And be easy on yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.